Nigeria faces rising security threats from kidnappings to attacks in vulnerable communities. At the launch of the 2026 Armed Forces Remembrance Day Emblem in Abuja, President Bola Tinubu urged Nigerians to reject divisive rhetoric, praised the military's courage, and reaffirmed his commitment to the welfare. State House correspondent Adesua Moran reports.
Inside the council chamber of the presidential villa, government officials, federal lawmakers, security chiefs and heads of security agencies, leaders of the Nigerian Legion gather for the launch of the 2026 Armed Forces Remembrance Day Celebration Emblem and Appeal Fund. President Tinubu used the occasion to caution Nigerians against fanning tensions with divisive rhetoric as insecurity continues to grip communities nationwide.
As we honor our heroes, I call on every Nigerian to reject divisive rhetoric and embrace respect, tolerance, and understanding. Our diversity is a natural national asset that must be protected and cherished.
He highlights recent military gains, including insurgents surrendering, key terrorists neutralized, joint operations strengthened, and praised the troops for courage across multiple theaters. The president promised improved government support for the armed forces and also reiterates ongoing initiatives, including engaging retired military officers in efforts to reclaim ungoverned spaces.
In line with the Renew Hope agenda, Ministry of Defense is developing Reclaiming the Ungoverned Spaces for Economic Benefit program by utilizing the experience of retired military personnel. This initiative aims to strengthen security and revitalize local economics and prevent the emergence of violence in previously affected communities.
The Chief of Defense Staff reaffirms the armed forces' commitment to national security despite what he calls complex and multifaceted challenges.
The threats we face today are complex and multifaceted, requiring not only a robust military response, but also a comprehensive whole-of-society approach that seeks to address the underlying causes.
The chairman of the Nigerian Legion, the first female in the nation's history, is making a passionate appeal for support.
For the first time that a female is coming in to be a chairman of Nigerian Legion, you know what it means when a woman is in a place. I'm pleading on behalf of the veterans, on behalf of the widows, on behalf of those still in the bush. They don't know whether they are coming back home or not, that they should please wear the emblem and donate for them.
As part of the emblem appeal, President Tinubu donates 200 million naira. President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, 100 million naira. And the Federal Capital Territory Minister, Nyesom Wike, adds 20 million naira, bringing the total to 320 million naira, down from last year's 750 million naira. After the emblem launch, President Bola Tinubu met with security chiefs and heads of security agencies for several hours. For now, he's urging Nigerians to wear the 2026 emblem with pride as a sign to honor the courage of those on the front line and those who paid the supreme price. As insurgency continues to torch communities nationwide, the armed forces shares in the nation's losses. And for the first time, in addition to the emblem, Nigerians home and abroad can show their gratitude to the armed forces through a platform called Thank a Soldier. From the presidential villa, Adesua Omoran, Arise News.
Also, President Bola Tinubu met with service chiefs and heads of intelligence agencies at the State House on Tuesday. The closed-door session lasted several hours. Afterwards, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Olufemi Oluyede, described the meeting as engaging, adding that the president issued fresh directives aimed at improving security operations while demanding greater efficiency and results in the ongoing fight against insecurity. Oluyede adds that security agencies are working to ensure a peaceful, festive season. Meanwhile, still on security, President Bola Tinubu has nominated former Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Gwabin Musa, retired, as Nigeria's new Minister of Defense. In a letter to Senate President Godswill Akpabio, Tinubu disclosed Musa's nomination as the successor to Mohammed Badaru, who resigned on Monday. Musa served as Chief of Defense Staff from 2023 until October 2025. He won the Colin Powell Award for soldiering in 2012. Born on Christmas Day in Sokoto in 1967, Musa received his primary and secondary education there before attending the College of Advanced Studies in Zaria. He graduated in 1986 and enrolled at the Nigerian Defense Academy the same year, earning a Bachelor of Science degree upon graduation in 1991. In other news, about 3 weeks after announcing the expulsion of FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, then PDP National Secretary Samuel Anyanwu and others, the Umar Damagum-led National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party has handed over to the Kabiru Turaki-led new leadership while announcing that it has dispatched expulsion letters to the FCT minister and other members expelled at the Ibadan convention. Damagum at the handover ceremony noted firmly that the PDP will never die, as the main opposition party is bigger than individuals.
But the beauty of this party is that it has always been able to surmount all obstacles that it has faced, and it will continue to surmount every obstacle that will come our way. Our future is bright. It's still the party to beat in the country. That's why you see they don't lose sleep. Every day we cross one hurdle, they put another hurdle, we cross it, we continue to cross these hurdles by God's grace.
I want to assure you, sir, that we have resolved that we will carry the flag and we will take it as far as we can.
As we wrap up the news today, we celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disability, which is marked globally on December 3 to promote the rights and well-being of people with disabilities at every level of society and development. Across all regions, persons with disabilities and their households face challenges and barriers in the attainment of social development objectives. They are more likely to live in poverty. They continue to face discrimination in employment, amongst many other hurdles. Today, we celebrate the unique set of people who make us proud in all they do. All right. Happy, or shall we say, World Day of Persons Living with Disabilities, December 3. And I know that we have an act around the prohibition of discrimination of persons with disability enacted in 2018. But beyond that, Vimbai, this morning, a number of stories. Yesterday confirmed, I know we talked about it, or you talked about it yesterday on the show, as to the potential of General Christopher Gwabin Musa, retired, being the new Minister of Defense. It's now been confirmed, and he would face Senate screening before if he's confirmed, then proceeds. But your take on the stories before us this morning?
Wow, several things to unpack this morning, and of course we're commemorating two significant days today, which is of course the Day of the People Living with Disabilities for one, and then of course we're beginning with the launching of the Emblem. We're beginning our journey to Armed Forces Remembrance Day. So both important and pivotal. I'll begin with the Armed Forces Remembrance Day and the launching of the emblem and the symbolism, and I think the important message coming from the president around diversity and the importance of our diversity as an asset, and ensuring that we continue to fight for that unity that we all seek for. Of course, in the spirit of Armed Forces Defense Day, Remembrance Day, we remember remember the spirit of reconciliation that led to this day being moved from November to January now, when we mark it and commemorate it. And for me, I never get tired of referring back to, our colonial legacy and how we ended up where we are now, especially when we talk about the divisions between people, because we know that the mega tribe or the creation of macro-ethnic tribes is one of the big issues, where you had so many smaller empires, so many groups of people lumped together, Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Fulani. But we know that in the history, these were all smaller groups of people. And of course, the colonizer lumped everybody together because it was an easier political unit to control. And it was easier to use these groups against one another. So I think it's always important for us to remember that Hausa, because in Hausa, they have their own concept of Ubuntu, which is Mutumin Kiriki. This is who we are at a core. Our fundamental values as Africans are based in Ubuntu, Mutumin Kiriki, and our oneness and togetherness. Now, the restructuring of our security architecture. The United States says it's not enough, but we're seeing movement here, and we're now waiting for a moment that we will see this movement translating into results. So what have we seen? We've seen the change in the Minister of Defense, the person at the helm of affairs, as we await for the confirmation of General Musa through the Senate, which, of course, by all intents and purposes, most people do feel is just a formality. As the census across the board, the sentiment is that he is the right man for the job. Let's take a look at some of his past statements and some of his past positions. Yesterday, I spoke about his position on fencing the borders, and I brought it to light, and I said that as much as some people continue to argue that our problems or our criminals are not coming in from across the borders, that we have issues that are within Nigeria, my argument is that, well, the weapons that are being used to perpetuate these crimes are coming in from outside Nigeria. So will he now have the political clout as somebody who will be joining FEC meetings to be able to push for the fencing of the borders, which I believe is now something that is due, since we are unable to deploy the number of boots on the ground that we will need to secure those porous borders? Maybe a fence might be the solution. He's also somebody who advocates for the use of technology because, again, with insufficient boots on the ground, technology can fill that gap. Now, he's in the past, when he spoke with Al Jazeera, I remember he'd also said that Nigeria needs to collaborate with the United Nations to trace the source of terror financing. Again, will there be the political will for, as the minister now, for him to be able to put some pressure and tackle some of these issues, especially given the opportunity to now engage more robustly with the international community as an administrator in government as opposed to as a military man. Lastly, of course, he had also brought up issues around our procurement procedures. Again, it all came down to political will for him, and he always felt that the politics didn't quite come together. Well, he's now in a position that allows for politics, for him to push for the political side of things. On a separate side, as I round up, in the same interview with Al Jazeera, he had noted concerns about international engagement. He categorically said he did not feel that Nigeria should have any international boots on the ground, that he thought it was a bad idea, and that it would create a proxy war within Nigeria. It will be interesting to see how he will reconcile that with the current diplomatic climate as we have sought re-engagement with the United States with regards to defense collaboration.
All right.
Okay, first, I thought I heard you saying some empires were small. They were
not small, but they were smaller, and then they were lumped into mega tribes.
There were no small empires in the real sense in our colonial African history. I mean, you cannot say that the Oyo Empire was small, or that the Kanem Bonu Empire was small, or that the Songhai Empire was small. What happened within that historical trajectory, intellectually, was a contestation in terms of power. And, these local authorities in Africa got subdued by superior power. Absolutely. That's what the theory says. Yes. However, that's not the story. The story is about, first, International Day of Disabilities. In 2018, Nigeria came up with what they called the Discrimination of Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018. And that was a major development that was credited appropriately to the Buhari administration, because that particular piece of legislation had been long in coming, But under President Buhari, we were able to have that piece of legislation. The whole idea was to encourage inclusiveness and to ensure that the disadvantaged persons in society, in the Nigerian society, were given equal opportunities. Since the principle is that you judge how a society is turning out by how it treats its marginalized, disadvantaged populations. Now, the Buhari administration still went ahead to form what was called the Disabilities Commission. But where the problem has been with Nigeria has been in the area of implementation of the same principles, the same commitments, and the same covenants that Nigeria has signed up to in that particular regard. And so today, we have the World Day of Disability, and the whole issue is about inclusion. Now, how many of these disabled persons are, included? I feel a sense of belonging. They are discriminated against at the workplace. They suffer from stigma, discrimination. And when it even comes to elections, they are marginalized, as you have seen in the 2023 elections. And that's why you have, persons within that community perpetually saying, we are also members of this community. After all, Section 42 of the Nigerian Constitution says nobody shall be discriminated against on the basis of religion, belief, circumstances of birth. So if circumstances of birth make some people, to be challenged, I don't want to use the word disabled, then of course, they are also part of this community and they have to be attended to. And I say that on this day, President Tinubu and the Nigerian government should return to that original principle about the fact that even persons who are challenged are members of this community. After all, yesterday we were discussing the special games in Abeokuta. It's always the challenged persons, either in Paralympics or Para Games, that are always winning the medals. Your so-called able-bodied people, the stories we hear from them is whether they have not been paid allowance or somebody has taken their allowance. So on this day, recognizing that certain persons among us are physically challenged, we have to restate those principles and to say that it's a wake-up call for Nigeria. It's not about rhetoric. That's about that. Now, two, we are told that the president has appointed former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Gabon Musa, as the Minister of Defense. Well, I said yesterday, and I recommended him, and before the end of the day, I saw that, there was a meeting of minds somewhere, and he was announced as the new Minister of Defense. I think he deserves it. I described him yesterday as a very pragmatic, sincere, straight-talking officer who has distinguished himself, either in the field of action or in also leading the Nigerian defense system. However, one challenge that you have in this country is that you don't always get proper credit if you are not from the same place. Now, Christopher Musa is from southern Kaduna. Now, people from that area, and I'm not inciting anything, but this is the truth. Except you are from a particular stock. If you are from another stock that is not popular, you may not get the kind of support that you deserve. But what President Tinubu, I'm going to jump the narrative. I don't want to dwell too much on that analysis. What President Tinubu has done is to reward him for his commitment, for his courage, for his diligence, and to say that, look, you cannot discriminate against people on the basis of where they come from. So his promotion to Chief of Defense Staff simply means that he's been recognized for what he has done. I see it as a kind of promotion. Some people say that it's the Americans who have given certain conditions and they have told President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to change the leadership of the security architecture and put people who have the relevant connections there. Well, I don't know about that. It may well be true, but we are a sovereign nation. And President Tinubu has the powers under our constitution to even change his cabinet. And now he has a minister of defense who is from the military background. The local assumption, will be that he will get the cooperation of persons within that wing of our society. And we're calling on the military forces to give him all the support that he needs. But apart from his colleagues supporting him, President Tinubu, the Nigerian government, must also support him in terms of what he needs. And I hope that those who are within that same community and whose functions may be related to his, we allow him to function. We expect that we get, in particular, the cooperation of the National Security Advisor. The National Security Advisor is in an advisory body. He works for the president. The Minister of Defense leads the defense team. I say this because in the past, there was always this friction. The National Security Advisor will say, the service chiefs should report to him. Meanwhile, the Minister of Defense will say, no, I'm in charge here. President Tinubu should pay attention to that to ensure that that kind of friction does not exist. Those whose job is advisory should do their job. Those who are going to lead in terms of policy should also do their job. We often get it wrong in that particular regard. Now, the discussion in the US, right? I think we started with that.
No, we're not. We didn't
we'll
take
deal
that
with
yet.
that with
we'll take that later.
We're leaving that till. Okay, what was the other topic?
So we had Wiki and expulsion. And
No. I remember now.
Okay.
We had the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which will be on January 15. And President Bola Ahmed Tinubu praising the soldiers, the Nigerian legionnaires, for their service to the country. And I think it is always important for us to recognize the contributions of our fallen heroes. Now, from about now, everybody will start wearing the remembrance poppy. It signals to the affected families who have lost their loved ones in the service of Nigeria that they have not been forgotten. Yeah. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday at the ceremony contributed a total of 200 million naira. The Senate President and Benjamin Kalu, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, who were both at the event, contributed 100 million. And then Nyesom Wike, the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, contributed 20 million naira, making a total of 320 million naira. To say that we have to support these fallen heroes. And very soon, when the puppies are put out there for us to buy, the expectation is that Nigerians generally should support these fallen heroes, their families, contribute to the plight, to the funding of interest related to persons who in the service of Nigeria had to lay down their lives. It's not an easy job that soldiers do. Many of us wake up and use powder, use lipstick, and we go to work. Many of us. That doesn't include
put lipstick.
You know that's a danger bias. But we should just know that there are people, who do not even sleep.
Yeah.
They are awake 24 hours so that we can sleep.
That's right.
They lose their lives so that we can live. Mm-hmm. And they also have families like us. They have children like us. And so when the Nigerian government says these persons must be remembered, I think we should all support the objective in that regard. I know that very soon we on this table too will start wearing the poppies, and we will do so till Armed Forces Remembrance Day to show that we recognize the gallantry of our soldiers and we support their commitment. As for PDP, that's an unfolding story. Yeah. So they say Wike and Co have been expelled from the party, what they call expulsion. Well, that's not the end. As we witnessed yesterday in Osun State, where there was back and forth over whether the PDP will be able to come up with, a successful primaries and who will be the candidate and which faction will, produce the candidate. But they're playing very safe. As I argued yesterday, the governor of Osun State, Imole, has decided to just step aside a little from PDP, perhaps until PDP resolves this crisis. And I said his position is just being safe. In case INEC will come tomorrow and say PDP in Osun State does not have a candidate because of the crisis at the national level, he will have ported to a safe haven. And then we take it from there. Yeah. So expelling people from the party is just another act in an unfolding drama.
In that unfolding drama, I believe we're still going to see a lot more court cases, even around this expulsion. But I think the question on the minds of a number of people this morning would be, who is remaining in the PDP? And I heard Senator Damagudem saying that they've been able to surmount all the challenges they faced. Many people might beg to differ on that, because currently the PDP is not a number of structures, state structures have been lost by the PDP, and they are not able to provide a united front with factions here and there, which is distracting them from their actual role as a political party, as an opposition party. So I don't quite agree with him that all challenges have been surmounted. Yes, they seem to be forging ahead despite all odds, but we are yet to see just how well they would go on with all these defections, all these state structures pulled away from them, and who will remain come 2027. And if at all, they'd be able to platform a candidate in the presidential and gubernatorial elections across Nigeria, that, candidates that are credible. But let me talk about, an important story, two important stories, as you mentioned earlier on, Vimbai. This morning, we're celebrating our fallen heroes. And something that Adeswa mentioned in that report that is very critical and was launched by the immediate past Minister of Defense was around the Thank a Soldier QR code digital platform. This is brilliant, and a brilliant initiative by this administration, because it gives civilians an opportunity to send direct thank you messages of support and hope to military men still in service. And so I'd like to encourage everyone, if you can, let's thank a soldier. The emblem that was launched yesterday by the president is not supposed to be worn just by political actors or media personnel or journalists, as we see on the table every year. Every Nigerian should make an effort, because what happens when you buy the emblem is that the proceeds from the emblem goes towards funding, the legions, the widows, going to activities to honor the fallen heroes. And that's why we saw Mrs. Morenike there, who is the first female, Morenike Henry, first female president of the Nigerian Legion, make an appeal for this. So I'm hoping that as Nigerians, more than any other time in the history of our nation, very significant, especially based on what the military is going through right now, laying their lives, paying the ultimate price against all odds, going out to secure the borders and even internal territory of Nigeria. Let us show support. Countdown to January 15, there'll be a number of activities already lined up, national symposiums, interfaith activities, and on the day itself, a laying of wreaths. But let's come together in a show of solidarity to demonstrate to these men and women in uniform that we, the Nigerian people, are in support of them. We want them to succeed. They get a lot of knocks and hits on a daily basis, but what we want is for a thriving military that's able to decimate and destroy terrorism in Nigeria. And I assure you that all support is definitely needed. So for all Nigerians, as many as possible, please go ahead, show the pride you have in the military and wear that emblem as led by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Moving on to the World Day for Persons Living with Disabilities. This year's theme is Fostering Disability Inclusive Societies for Advancing Social Progress. The statement has already been established around the fact that there is legislation to protect the rights of persons living with disabilities, people who are said to be almost invisible in the society based on their representation and how the Nigerian society supports them. And I believe that today is a wake-up call again to ensure that as a nation, we are protecting the most vulnerable in society. When we talk about the issue of poverty, challenges with unemployment, they face perhaps a double or even triple discrimination in that regard. And so I'm hoping that we don't pay lip service on a day like this, but we actually look at the enforcement of already established laws. What we often say is that Nigeria does not have a challenge of a dearth of laws. The big challenge usually is implementation and enforcement. And so what we want to see is more representation, whether it be in political offices, whether it be in places of employment. We want to also see accessibility of buildings so that as a nation, we show that we are truly inclusive and every single Nigerian feels a sense of belonging. Yesterday, I was at the Kuka Center where they had a symposium around promoting national cohesion and inclusion. And we sat on a panel with a lady who is a disability advocate. And just to hear, that's Grace Jerry Michela, just to hear her speak speak again and again about things that have been spoken about even before the law was enacted in 2018, around the fact that people living with disabilities in Nigeria face significant discrimination. It is the responsibility of the Nigerian state, as well as individuals like you and me, to ensure that we're able to change that narrative so that we don't come and pay lip service to an acknowledgement day on the 3rd of December, but actually do work. The legislation is there. Let us enforce it. Let us bring it to life. Let us ensure that we protect the most vulnerable in society. Moving on to the story around the new Minister of Defense. Yesterday, I wasn't here to talk about the story, and I'm glad that this morning we have the opportunity to talk about General Christopher Gwabin Musa. This, in terms of the appointment of the president, is a square peg in a square hole. And that is what a number of analysts have regarded with regards to an appointment of a man who actually has the experience and expertise in this area for such a time as this in the history of Nigeria's insecurity, to ensure that we're able to show and demonstrate seriousness in tackling this issue of insecurity. So the president, including the actions by the presidency at this point, demonstrates a willingness, a political will to actually deal with this challenge that has been plaguing the country for the last 15 years or even a little bit more, and take a serious action to dealing with it. This meetings with the service chiefs, the appointment of the Minister of Defense, the direction, and I know a number of people have talked about, do we have political will to ensure that he's able to actually discharge his duties? And I believe that based on the recent moves of the president, we can't give him that benefit of the doubt. But this morning, I want to pose a challenge. There's a lot of work ahead of the service chiefs, ahead of the Minister of Defense in terms of the state of insecurity. We still have a big challenge around banditry, kidnappings. I want to raise awareness this morning around the kids, the children that have been abducted from the Niger school. I say this because having or being okay in the den of kidnappers is not what any parent wants to hear. What we want is a return of these children who are as young as pupils in nursery and primary school. We are hoping that they will not spend Christmas in the kidnappers' den. And so today I want to raise awareness, and we continue to keep that conversation on the table. We must not forget, until every single child is brought back home and Nigerians across the geopolitical zones can go about their daily duties without fear of abduction or the fact that they don't, of insecurity threats, then we must not rest on our oars. Finally, on this point, on Monday, I had a visit from two of the husbands of the two defense directors who were abducted on their way to Abuja for a promotional exam. Four of them have been released after ransom was paid. But two women still remain in captivity, Mrs. Chinwe Emeribe and Mrs. Onwuzurieke. When you look at the face-to-face of people who have been directly impacted by insecurity, it would give you a different sense of what's really going on. And that's why this morning, my appeal in terms of the moves by the security chiefs, the president himself, is that can we bring these people back home, and can we ensure that we can have a truly festive Christmas season in Nigeria this year?